And while we're getting settled as well, in the chat box, I'm going to go ahead and drop in today's planning guide. You will be able to use that. Becoming a teacher, such a good thing, Miss Gail, such a good thing. And pardon me, y'all, I'm from the South. My mother would smack me in the head if I didn't use proper terms in front of people's names. I still never know where she'll pop up. So I'm going to drop a link to the planning document. Again, this is something you can use to keep going or to kind of plan to take out those things you have. I like that. It's yet to come. Ooh, that's a good one. And you're not biased. Those are your babies. You're not biased. Fatherhood. And I love that you proudly display that picture with your baby strapped on the front. You don't know how much mamas like to see that. Daddy's involved with babies is good. Okay. I'm going to let everybody get settled. The other thing I'm going to do that's a little different today, they were having a Zoom issue, which is why we are here and meet today, because every now and then Zoom gets a little cranky like every tool. I'm going to drop in a little sign-in form and ask you just to complete that, because that will be able to be given to them, to your school administration, as a way just to show you we're here. You're here, you want credit for being here, and I don't blame you on that. So I'll call that the sign-in form and drop the link to that for you. And it's a pretty simple form. I think it asks for like your name and your email address. By the way, that's not to spam you. It's to let your bosses know who was here, and we have to report to Google who we trained. And I think we're starting to get everybody in. We are already recording, so if there's anything that they miss, we will, of course, be able to catch them up as well. But first of all, thank you. I know your time as teachers is precious, and I know this has been a challenging end of the school year, and those challenges haven't necessarily abated for the new school year. So hopefully we can work alongside you to help you get ready for those challenges. So the first thing is, where are we headed? We're going to look at online assessment, and specifically thinking about what did assessment look like in your classrooms before we knew that annoying word, COVID. And then we'll look at what were the challenges in the spring of how to assess your students, especially virtually. And then we'll start to look at ways we can design them and how to use some of the Google tools like slides and forms, which tie into classroom. And we'll look at how those all kind of can work together for remote instruction and assessment. So that's kind of the where we're headed today. And I'm going to make sure I'm skipping. We don't need the Zoom information today. So we'll bounce past that, and I dropped the planning guide into chat. Remember, if you don't pull it right now, that's okay. All of those materials will also be in Sketch for you. Just remember, you have to scroll down past the Zoom stuff. So the first place I want to go is having you think about, what did it look like before COVID? When you were doing assessments for your students, before we had to worry about remote assessment and kids who couldn't be in the classroom and all of those challenges we've been dealing with. So what I'm going to drop in the chat right now for you, and just in case somebody came in, excuse me, y'all, my voice is funky. Just in case you missed it, if you don't know how to get to chat, up in the upper right, you'll see a little icon that looks like a little kind of instant message chat bubble. That's going to be where you want to go for that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and drop in one that says warm up Google form. And that is going to take you into a form that will look like this. It's a quick one to answer, I promise. Ooh, a book collection. That's awesome. You would need to talk to my sister. She's got a book collection like no other. And pardon me, guys, you're going to see me look to the side because I have two different screens going. So your faces are over to my left. It's not because I'm ignoring you, I promise. It's because I want to see you. There we go. Okay, and I know we have one or two more people still joining, so I'll be catching them up. Please be sure to open your chat window. To do that, you're going to go in the upper right, and there's the little chat message icon, and you'll want to open that. We're working on the warm-up Google form. I'm going to drop the same link in because sometimes with chat, if they weren't in, they won't necessarily see the messages above. And I'm trying to make sure I remember Google versus Zoom. Oops. What you will also notice on the screen I'm sharing is that I'm showing you live results. One of the things that's really kind of awesome about Google Forms as a teacher is if you want to see how your kids are actually doing, you can actually give them a form and you can watch the results live. So as you continue to submit responses, you're actually going to see these graphs change live in real time. So one just jumped in and you noticed things kind of shifted. This is kind of a cool way to work with your kids if you're asking some questions and letting them see just the differences. And I'm just looking at the split of information right now. Give you a little more time to answer this one, and excuse me for just a minute. I'm just checking on y'all. Y'all doing okay in the room? I see a group of you together in a room. Just making sure y'all are okay. Y'all doing okay in the room together?
Can you hear us now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, we're just a little bit, we're catching up a little bit here because we have to switch over to one presentation board, and then everybody, we're going to need you to get on your computers to do the exercises, but don't get into the chat. So go log into your Google Classroom, and this is where the chat will be, okay?
Oh, okay. And my Google
All right, and she can hear you now, so if you have a question, shout it out.
Yep, you can talk to me. I don't bite, I promise. I'm too far away. So I know that all of you may not be able to get to this screen right now quickly, and that's okay. I don't want to tie you up here. I always, though, just want to make the point with teachers that with Google Forms, you, as the person who creates a form, and we'll look at that a little later, have the ability to look at those results. Now, I always say, look, ma, no hands for this part, because I didn't build these graphs. These graphs actually were things that Google builds automatically. And so that's the really good part. I also encourage teachers to stop and pause and look at this spot, because there's some really important stuff that we ask here. When I ask you to select your assessments, because you want to look at, as a school, what are the most common types of assessments? And not that there's a wrong answer, but when you see a lot of quizzes and tests, those were often problematic for people in the spring. When you start to look at things like performance-based assessments or physical products, reports, projects, things like that, those may have become a little bit more of an easy way, or a way that you could get good assessments for kids, even if they're not sitting right in front of you. So those are kind of the key takeaways from this little activity and having you look at this and see this. And like I said, sometimes you may choose to give a form to your kids. They are great for at the start of class to kind of ask some questions and check in and just get a pulse of the kids. You know, we're used to having them in front of us and asking some questions and getting an idea of what they know, or having them do just a quick little ticket, ticket in or out of the door, either way. Things like bell ringers to see how they're doing. And so we use those as teachers to check that pulse and then adjust our teaching based on where we see our kids are. And so that becomes a little bit sometimes more challenging when they're apart. So a tool like Google Forms can let you do that. Now, I'll close that out for now. The other thing to think about, and that was what we just kind of did, we picked at the data. But I want you to think back, like I said, before COVID, which I don't know about you, but that makes me take a nice deep breath sometimes and go, the good old days. But in the good old days of last school year at about this time, as you were planning your year and getting your year kicked off, think about the types of assessments you used. Because what I want you to think about, and if you have access to the chat, or if you just want to use your mic and come off mic and tell me about it, what were some of the challenges for you as far as assessing kids in the spring when we were separated from our kids? What kind of problems or challenges came up that you had to kind of deal with?
This is Bob Moe here. One thing that I ran into was my students that when we were in brick and mortar, the parents were not very communicative. When we made that transition, it was almost like they disappeared off the face of the earth. I would reach out multiple times to these parents and wouldn't get responses very often. So it feels good being able to establish that communication at the beginning of the school year, set some precedent.
Yeah. And you're going to need those parents to be partners as best they are capable between the tech that they have access to. We know a lot of families, and I referenced this with somebody in kind of when we were pre-chatting before the session started, that families have been under an enormous amount of stress. And so there are some families who the parents have been busy just working, they're frontline workers, they've been working the whole time. And the kids are often at home, sometimes with another adult who maybe is asleep because of work schedules or isn't in a position to necessarily be a support to them. So thinking about how you can help your parents to do that. Assessment might even be reaching out to parents and establishing kind of learning a little bit about them, because one of the other challenges we're finding that Al may have talked about in the previous sessions is, as we talk about that communication pillar, how do we establish communication with those parents so that we can understand what they need from us? Because every family situation is different. And so how are we going to be able to help those families to help those kids? And while that's not a student assessment, it still could be a part of the assessments we need to do for a digital classroom. So that's a really good point. Did anybody run into problems with worries about if a student was actually the one doing the work, or if they were the ones looking it up on Google and trying to find their answers there? Because that was a common problem we've heard through the spring as well. So did anybody run into that? And if you have a camera on, you can thumbs up if that is you as well. You know, sometimes those visual cues, just like we use with the kids. Yep. So here's a word I heard sometimes too. How do I keep the kids from, and I'm going to air quotes this word, so sorry for that. How do I keep the kids from cheating? Well, you know, it depends on what you're trying to do with the kids. So we'll talk about some ways to look at how to adjust assessment for virtual teaching. Okay, and as always, you have access. If able, you're welcome to always continue to throw things in the chat, even as we continue our discussions today. So here are some things to think about when you think about your classroom. One of them is, one of the ways we can avoid the issues of, is it the student's work? Am I really getting an assessment of what they know, or am I getting an assessment of what they can look up? Is how do we get to those higher order thinking skills? Things like getting them to analyze or apply it or make something, design something, any of those things, evaluate, taking them to that higher level versus those more surface questions. So any of those things, y'all good now? Yay. I know everybody's getting settled. So think about these things to consider. If you're going to use something that looks more like a traditional classroom quiz, even if it's just a digital version of that, make those things that are those formative, those how are the kids doing, those check-in type grades, low stakes, not the things we use at the end of like a unit or a chapter to know how a student's doing. If you're going to use something like multiple choice, consider adding in a question below that multiple choice and ask them to explain it. Because so often we give multiple choice. And guys, when I say things like this, please know I'm with you in this. I'm in that boat too. We would give multiple choice things, but we didn't always know why they picked the dot they did or the checkbox they did. So how can we give them a requirement to explain their answer? And sometimes it's just by adding a question, because that can be a way to see what the student knows. Looking at things like projects, essays, things where the kids make something, create something, a performance-based task, a way to weight that a bit heavier. And we'll even get into some of those types of tasks even deeper tomorrow. For rubrics, if you're giving kids things like that aren't just like a checkbox, how are we going to express to our kids what we're looking for? What are they being graded on? I read an interesting article not long ago, kind of almost against rubrics. And one of their main arguments I could see, they talked about sometimes we make rubrics really, really complicated. So keeping it simple for our kids, but making it clear, here's how you're going to be graded. This is what you must have. So including those things for our kids. Things like tests. Now, y'all, I was talking to a colleague and I was like, I kind of almost disagree with this one. And maybe some of you have had a similar experience as a teacher to me. I've often found that students struggle with open book, open notebook tests. We give those tests and sometimes it becomes a little bit of a challenge for the kids. And so that's just something to think about. It doesn't mean it's necessarily like right or wrong, but think about what's good for kids, of course. And one of my friends made a point. She's like, but Marcy, maybe that test I'm allowing them, instead of an open book or notebook, I'm asking them to pull some information from Google and then apply it. Maybe so. We just want to be very thoughtful about the things we do. It's been stressful for you, for your kids, for your families. And so how can we best support them? What shifts make sense for your kids? And this is what I tell teachers that I work with all over the country. You know your students. You absolutely know your students. Find the ones that work for you and your students. And I know that you're getting new kids this year. But I also know that in smaller schools, sometimes we have the advantage of knowing some of those kids even before they get to us. Another one is virtual proctoring, using something like Google Meet to proctor students taking a test. And we'll look at some images and go a little deeper into that one in a moment. Now, we talked about that one already. So let's talk about a couple of things to think about. Sometimes, and I've so been guilty of this at times in my career, I've focused more on the tool than what I'm trying to do with the kids. So really important to start with your what. What are you trying to assess? What is the standard? What is the learning goal that you want to get your kids to? Because that needs to be the first thing you consider. That's like primary choice or primary decision. Once you know that, then you're going to be able to choose those appropriate tools. Now, I'm going to say something that's going to sound a little weird here, so hang with me for a second. Sometimes as teachers, especially as we are working to understand how tools behave or how to use them, we start to worry about this third one first, the how. I don't know how to do that. I know the tool works and it does this, but I don't know how to do it. I always encourage teachers, uplift each other, especially during these kind of challenging times. Start with your what are you trying to assess, and then figure out which tool is going to help you get to that assessment. Then worry about the how. And I'm almost sure, and I'm pardon my face going the other way because I'm looking at just some different things to make sure of which pieces are there. So taking the time to kind of be able to dig into those and use those people on your faculty. There are going to be people who grabbing all of these tools becomes a lot easier than for some of you, and that's okay. It's kind of like saying for some of you, math is easier than language arts. You got to kind of take care of each other. Once you've got those first three pieces worked out, don't forget this last crucial step of a review. Review the results of the assessment. Make sure it's reliable. When you look at that assessment, does it actually go back to that first question you asked of what do you want to assess? Did you assess the learning goal or did it get off track? And if it got off track, sometimes we have to just shift, just like anything we do with teaching. And think about it. Sometimes we build something that we think is the greatest lesson ever. It's worked before with kids, and we get a different class and it like falls flat on its face. That's a painful day in our classrooms, right? So we have to kind of pick up and just adjust. So be willing to adjust as you continue. Okay, and so a couple of things just to think about, and I'm going to hit just a few of these. For most of you, you are storing these assessments and communicating them through your G Suite or your Google apps, okay? And so that's going to be the way you do that. There is an account that's going to kind of keep you safe there, and keeping it in that school account is what keeps it safe and important. Give me just a sec. I'm just so you know, I'm not being mean, I'm just muting so everybody can hear because I know it's hard enough. My voice is already weak enough today. Okay, I think we're good there. You know, just like I tell teachers too, sometimes we have a favorite lesson or we have a favorite assessment or activity. You're going to have to look at those and really see, are those going to work? Are those going to work for, oh, okay, it is not letting me mute. Okay, there we go. Got it. Sorry, Google Meet was not letting me mute for a minute. Look at what you're doing. These changes in the way we teach call for changes sometimes in things we love. I went to my own son's high school in the spring and helped them make this transition to digital learning. And I told some of the teachers, I said, look, think of Frozen and the song Let It Go. Sometimes the things we love the most, and we've been teaching for a while, we might have to do a little bit of letting it go and adjusting things and reviewing how does that fit. So just things to keep in mind as you kind of start this process and move into this school year. I said earlier that I would talk a little bit more about proctoring. So in Google Meet, there are some schools that will do some tests and do live proctoring. What they will do is have the kids come in a smaller group usually. Now, that depends on class size. You know, if you have 20, 30 kids in a class, the last thing I want to try to watch is 20, 30 little faces trying to take a test. So if you use this, just be thoughtful about the way you use it. We have worked with everybody from kindergarten and pre-K all the way through. I actually got to work with a nursing school that had to make a shift online. They had to, and I still call them kids because of my age, but those adult students have to take licensure tests. So they had to do some live proctoring. Just a little lesson that they learned that they shared with me. Their initial thoughts as a school were that they would have the kids mute their microphones during the test. The kids would log in the classroom with their camera on and Meet open. And they would go in and they would click at the assignment and they would work on the test. And so the teacher was watching their faces. Well, it turns out one kid missed the instructions about muting their mic, and they heard some dings and they saw a head go down and some things going on below the screen. And all of a sudden, answers started to quickly be put into that student's work. Somebody had texted that student answers. So they moved to, if you would find a need, if there's a reason to do live proctoring based on your content and your kids, you might consider mics on. I am going to say this, though, because I think it's something we have to be aware of with kids, no matter which school we teach in. It's been a discussion point among teachers around the country. We need to be respectful of our kids. There may be some kids who are not comfortable on camera. You know, I'm very blessed. I've been working from home for a couple of years now. So I have my office, doors locked, families outside, dogs are locked outside. I can do that. In the spring, I had a college kid working at the kitchen counter and the high schooler took over the kitchen table. There are kids who don't have that kind of space in their house. There were schools telling kids, well, don't work in your bedroom. That may be the only quiet place that kid has in their house. So as a school, think about your students and what their situations are, because you may have to think about those rules and be aware. You know, some of you may be in places where you absolutely need to mute a microphone because things are going on. And our kids may be in the same situation. They may have multiple people all working in their house or in their apartment. So just think about that, because we want to be respectful. We don't ever want to make kids uncomfortable with cameras and mics. So something just to keep in mind. Note that some teachers will also, while they may not be live on camera with students, we remind teachers that in Google Classroom, when you open their work, say it's class time and your kids are working on an assignment, you can actually go into Classroom. And if you've handed that assignment out to them where they each get a copy, once the student clicks for the first time and they open that work and they start working, you as the teacher can actually click and see their work. Now, they have the right to edit it. You have the right to look at it until they turn it in. When they turn it in, you get edit rights as the teacher. They have the right to look at it. So just be aware that that is another way. Sometimes as teachers, when we're together, we're used to, I don't know about you, but physical proximity is one of my favorite tools as a teacher. You know, we hang over their shoulders or we'll go kind of peek at what they're doing and we're moving around the room. But when our kids are remote, we don't have that ability to assess them that way. And that informal assessment's still important. So this could be used as a full proctoring, or it could be used as just a way of monitoring and making a comment to a kid who's struggling or needs a little help or is off direction of what they're supposed to be trying to accomplish. So keep those in mind as well. Oops, sorry, y'all. There we go. All right. So we're going to dig into some examples here, and I'm going to pull one of these up. Now, I will tell you, we play with this particular activities, so sometimes there's a mess and we've typed on different things. But one of the things I want teachers to think about is this: Google Slides. So I won't tell you how old I am. Let's just say I'm covering my grades really well, even during a pandemic, okay? I will tell you that growing up, let's just say I grew up with those computers coming up alongside me and technology changing alongside me. And we grew up with documents being the main place we go. When we thought of something, we would think of, okay, let me open a document and type up a document, and I'll give the document to the kids. I'm going to make the argument to you to consider, and I'll show you why. Slides may often be a better tool for you than a Google document and for your kids. And so some of the same features that exist in docs carry over to slides. But slides can be set up to A, be more interactive for your kids usually, and B, those of you who teach, I call them the littles, those little sweet babies, who can't always read yet really well, there are going to be some ways that I can show you to use slides as a great way to help them interact and still access learning. Because that's one of the common questions we're getting from pre-K, even through like second grade. Marcy, my kids can't read great yet. How do I help them learn when they're not with me? So we'll look at a couple of ways for all grades in here. So first of all, if you were teaching something like World War II, now it could be anything, but this is an example. You can give kids slides with things that say, click the image, explore this, and send them out to a website. And that can be no matter your topic. So one of the things I always want to show teachers, and I'm going to add a slide in here, this insert menu in Google Slides has much more as far as options of things to put in than Google Docs does. So under insert, I can put an image. And I'm able to search the web. And so you can see I actually had searched this the other day. So I'll just grab a picture really quick. We're just gonna, I have no clue what some of these are. I don't know what that is even in small, but we'll grab it and drag it for now. Oh, it's stars. That's kind of cool. I don't know what they represent, but we'll pretend I do. Because what I want you to see is, first of all, I don't know how many of you have had this fun experience. When you put an image into Google Docs or into Word, even with those little settings, have you ever tried to chase that image and the text all around the page and get it lined up the way you want? How many of you found that? Like, I want to pull my hair out sometimes. With images and slides, you can drag and drop them. I can add multiple pictures. I can add text boxes. I can make this work the way I need it to look. I also, you'll notice I'll click off. When I click on the image, there is a blue box around it. Now, there are usually more than one way to do things in Google. If I looked at this little, I call it the sideways paperclip, it says insert link. Just as a note, you also have that option under the word insert as link. So I can link a student out to a web page. Now, just for speed, I'm just going to type in google.com. And you're able to teach your kids that when I say to go to a website, I can just say in the box, like I did on this one, click the image and go through these collections and stories. Now, I don't know if I have any of you that teach things like art, music, that become very challenging when you're remote. I'm going to take you to this website because while it's linked to World War II, there's a lot of cool information here, and I'll drop the link for this right into the chat box. So this is a website called Google Arts and Culture. It used to be called the Cultural Institute. Google is literally working with museums all around the world. So in this case, for World War II, if I'm studying a topic, they actually have a link directly to Auschwitz's State Museum in Poland, where I get to look at resources from their museum that are shared for free, my favorite word in education, and you can use any of these different things. If I wanted to talk to my kids about World War II, I don't know about you, but I found this one super powerful. These are the glasses taken away from people who were sent to Auschwitz. You want to help kids get kind of an understanding. I don't know about you, but like you look at that and you understand a little bit of how many people we're talking about. But I also want to show you that in this little 3 lines up here, and you might recognize that Google calls it the hamburger. Anytime you see 3 lines, 3 dots, those give you options. If you teach art, there are artists, there are mediums, there are art movements, historical events, historical figures. So you're able to go in and see what kind of information they have. And so this is a great place for primary sources. I'll tell you that as a language arts teacher, I wasn't an art teacher. I would never tell you that I'm an artist, okay? Just, I'm not. But I appreciate art. Sometimes I might come and grab a picture and I might choose one of these and I might just grab this link from the address bar and I could share that to my kids in Google Classroom with a link and a question. How does this make you feel? Or give me 2 adjectives to describe this if we're studying adjectives. So lots of really good free resources that become part of the Google Arts, and Culture Institute. So I always show that one to teachers along with the fact that we can link out. Now you're going to see me as I add things sometimes delete because we come back and forth to this. The other thing that's nice about things like slides is I can ask questions and have the kids actually respond here just like I might in a document. So I asked the kids here to choose a story or an event from World War II and explain the importance of that story or event to the war. So let me pose this question to you. If I ask a question like this, can I learn more about a child's understanding than just with multiple choice questions? Because I'm asking them to take something I sent them to and read and then tie that into the learning we've been doing. So these can be, even though we don't think of them as necessarily traditional assessments, you can build assessments for your kids. Then I could ask them even that deeper question. Relate your chosen story or event from World War II to a modern event in U.S. history. Can they take something and apply it? Because again, we're getting to those higher order skills. It also becomes something that is a lot harder for them to Google just a straight answer to and copy and paste. Somebody who I know that's really smart said sometimes we have to think in education about asking the ungoogleable, and I think they made that word up, by the way, question. Are we just asking questions where kids have access and can pull up answers? Are we asking them to think? Things like this. These are text boxes. This is a vocabulary map where it shows the word, the part of speech definition. The kids have to insert a picture so they can do that just like we can. Ruby, I'm going to come back to that question. That's a good one. A sentence that uses the word and a definition. So here's one that's filled out. The other thing I point to teachers with something like this is how we assign this type of thing matters. It could be that I assign a deck to a small group of kids and ask them to do it collaboratively. Maybe there are 8 vocabulary words and I put 4 kids on this and say, you guys are going to complete this deck. And then I make them accountable by saying each member of the group should read through all of the slides. If you disagree, and you guys can have a conversation, because remember, they can highlight stuff and add a comment. And if they can't come to an agreement, I used to have a rule for my kids in group work. If you're doing this and you can't come to an agreement as a group, let's say this was my slide that was assigned, I can leave my answer. But that member of the group that doesn't agree and couldn't come to a consensus should highlight it and put a comment and explain to me why you disagree. Because I think we've got to teach kids how to make their point and how to do that in a manner that promotes discussion. Let them disagree. It's okay to disagree. I think we kind of forget that as a society. So we have to model that with our kids. Ruby asked about in Google Classroom, can you record and edit videos? So Classroom doesn't have a true way to actually record. Now, here's what you could do though. And I have Google Meet on my other computer, which is, like I said, pardon me, that's why you're seeing the side of my face at times, because I'm looking at your faces and checking the chat. But what you are able to do is within Google Meet, you don't have to have your kids there to record. I remind teachers, you can open up a Google Meet, go to those 3 buttons in the bottom and record, and open up something on your screen and make a recording. That recording gets saved in your Google Drive, and then you can actually share that recording to the kids through Classroom. Just one note, because I always like to be super above board with people. The way Record works, up until COVID, it was a paid feature. It has become free because of COVID. What's going to be happening in the next month or so, by September 30th, would be about a safe bet. Google's still going to let you record for free as an education account, which is what we're in now. Sorry, I probably just made y'all dizzy. And what'll happen is the video will last for 30 days. Now, you won't be able to download it, but you will be able to share it through Google Classroom. But it'll only work within people who have your school account. I wish it was all free, but the flip side is I gotta bet Google is running out of, I can't imagine the server space, because I know how much teachers are recording just since COVID started with Google Meet. So that's my guess on why they did that. So yes, Ruby, I'll poke back to that. If I don't remember to do that right at the end, remind me, okay? And I'm looking for Ruby's face in the thing. So remind me if I forget that one. I'll show you that one in a bit.
Okay.
So just a couple of other things I want teachers to know. When you work, and I don't care if this is Google Docs or Google Slides, one of the best things you can do for your kids, especially if they are also pretty new to Google, is insert tables. If you're going to let kids work together and collaborate, which is good, we want them to do that. One of the most common problems is if I just gave a slide like this, something like this, to the whole class and said, okay, everybody go add your answer, I can promise you what's going to happen. Those kids are going to write over each other's answers, and it becomes kind of a mess. So I love to show teachers that you have the ability to insert tables. And in this section, I set up kind of a template for my kids who are doing some research where they can add spaces. Even if a kid is getting something where they have their own copy, I tend to insert tables, and I'll show you how to do that very briefly. Under Insert, that's going to be your favorite menu here probably. You have the choice for table, and you can set up however many lines you like. If you have a bigger class, what you might choose to do is set up the table and then just copy it. So I might just say something like student name. Maybe I'm like, okay, what do you know? What do you want to know? Maybe it's the beginning of a lesson and we're talking about a topic. And then if I have 12 kids, right, maybe, I can actually right click on the slide and just duplicate the slide so that each student would have a space to type. Now I might put a few more rows, but leave them room to put their answers because that's important for them to have space. Okay, and like I said, you're going to see me kind of delete things as we go just so that I can use this again. This one's a table where they have to fill some things in. Now, some of you teach little kids and you've been watching me show that other stuff going, Marcy, this is nice, but my kids can't do that. Look, y'all are smiling. She's going, yes, Marcy. So let's talk about your little kids. There are ways to make these work for really well for little kids. You have the ability to insert audio. Now, you're not going to hear this because I'm sharing a window so that I can bounce around, but you can actually insert audio clips so that they'll play. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment. You will notice this is insert image, just like we did earlier with insert an image, and you can actually look on the web and grab images. So, you know, if we're doing simple stuff, dog, I can grab a picture of a dog and I can either just drag it over or I can slide it in. Okay. The other thing I'll show you before I show you how to make those sounds and insert them is that a lot of times when we think of Google Slides, we think of only putting something on that space that's a slide. Somebody's nodding, because we think of it as when we present, if it's not in the slide, it doesn't show up. Your little kids and even your big kids don't always have to use slides in a manner of, I'm creating a presentation for you. Okay? So they are actually able, you can put pictures or things or even text boxes, if they're old enough to pick out some basic words, on the side of the slide. Because see how I can drag from the bottom? So I have images stacked all over here that I could have kids drag in. So when you start to talk about those things you teach, like beginning sounds or ending sounds, rhyming words, I could put in, here, I'll do one real quick for you guys. I tend to clear these out of my way. That's a Marcy thing. But I could put in a shape. So I'll grab a shape and I can click and drag. And maybe I'll just real quick duplicate that so I have two. You are able to double click and I can type directly in that shape. I don't have to layer a text box on top. So I can say something like rhymes with, and remember, they might not be able to read really great yet. So I could do something like this, because pictures become a big deal for your little kids. I don't think I want this scary looking bat. So I'm going to change my search to bat clip art. I don't want the ones that look creepy, right? So I can drag it over, and sometimes you do have to shrink it. Remember, you want to use a corner to shrink it down. And I'm going to drop that in. Okay. So, and I would pretty this up. Okay. But for time's sake, I won't do that right now. So maybe I have a box that rhymes with bat and a box that rhymes with something else. So then I can take a cat. Y'all are going to test me today on my little kid languages and rhyming words. Oops, I can't spell. Clip art, not clip cat. So we'll bring, let's see, he looks very much like a cat. So I'll start by just dropping him on the slide and shrinking him down, and then see how I can start to drag him to the side. And when you first start this, you might have it like setting there just a little bit on the edge, just so they see it. Because remember, your kids are going to have to get used to this stuff too. You could put it halfway, all the way, or over on the side. And then you can teach kids to drag things in and drop them. Okay. And pardon me, guys, you're going to get the close-up extreme view because I am looking at your questions. Okay. So we're looking at some of this, activities and slides for preschools. I don't have any particularly built, Michelle, and I'll show you a couple examples, and I'll have to poke around and see what we've got floating around. I might be able to find you something. So as far as the audio, here's what I could do. Now, let me be very honest. If you come to insert and you click on audio, this is the one thing I want people to know, and I'm super honest. When you come to insert audio, there is no record button built into Google Slides. So I found a way. One of my colleagues asked me about this morning, and when I told him, he's like, Marcy, that's not so terrible. I was like, I know. So there is a website, and I'm going to drop this address into your chat box. This is free. I have not logged into anything. I just dropped the website into chat, so you may want to hang on to that one. It's a site called Vocaroo. Now, it is a beta site, but in all fairness, Vocaroo has been around for a long time. They've been in different formats, but this is web-based, and here are the steps. And remember, if you're jotting, you're also going to have this recording to come back to, because I don't know about you, but sometimes I need to see it again later. You click on the red button right in the middle, and it starts recording, and you can see that it's recording. Now, for time's sake, I'm going to stop it. I have gone as far as 2.5 minutes. That's a lot of audio without other stuff, so I would probably break things up. Here's the magic button, though. Save and share. Now, what it has done is it actually saves. I could give somebody that link and send them to their website, but don't do that. Here's why. It gives them ads on the side. And while they haven't been really bad, they haven't always been things I'm like, oh yeah, send a kid to that site. But here's what it does let you do. You have a download button. And even if you're on a Chromebook, you can download. You just can't download, huge files forever. But you can click download, and you'll see in the bottom corner, it just downloaded it to my computer. Now, remember, Google Drive is our storage space. So I'm going to open that little plus sign that's a new tab. And I'm going to click, I don't know if Al used the word the waffle with you. Those of us who've been Google people use that word a lot. The waffle. And I'm going to just open my Google Drive. And you'll notice I have different tabs open, and that's fine. When I click new, I'm going to choose file upload. And then it's going to let me pick my file. Even on a Chromebook, there is a little bit of a download section. Like I said, you just can't store huge files. So it labels it with the date and time. I could have renamed it if I wanted, but I'm going to go ahead and click open. And it adds it to my Google Drive. Now, there's one really important step I want you to see, because if you don't do this, you're going to run into an issue. Now, when I click on this, remember I said 3 dots are the hot dog. That's another place Google hides options. So in the 3 dots, I am going to choose that button that says share, because right now this file belongs to me and I'm not allowing other people access. So I'm going to click share. Here's the best way to do this. This bottom section that says get link, I'm going to change that link to Edge Escape Learning. Now, that's my version of your school, okay? That's the school for us. I change it the easiest way. If you can do anybody with the link, that's the easiest way. If you don't have that option, just set it to anybody within your school. And here's the weird word. I'm setting them as a viewer, which sounds kind of weird because it's audio, I know, but it lets them view the file and click play, okay? So I'm going to choose done. Now, I've set this file up, so I'm going to be able to go back into the correct file, and now I can use that insert button. So insert audio, and it's going to pull up files that are in my Google Drive. Okay, so I'm going to click right there on files, and I'm going to choose select. And notice it drops in the little button. I can make it a little bit bigger, especially maybe for your little kids who need a little bit bigger spot to hit. The one other thing I've been telling teachers with this, and you can't hear it because of the way I'm sharing today, but it says here volume when presenting, when it's clicked. I highly advise you turn that down. Believe it or not, it really plays it pretty loud. And especially with little kids, sometimes they're not good about adjusting volumes. They'll listen to it at max blast. So you can actually turn it down and then kind of check it and see how it works for your kids. Now, I know it's a couple of steps, and I promise it gets really easier than, I did it once, but you'll get to where it's easy. That is then going to allow you can add multiple audio clips throughout here. So you don't have to have just one. So I could maybe put like my cat, and we could pretend I recorded what cat sounds like and put it here. I could have recorded bat and played it where they could play bat and play cat. Because one of the challenges that's coming up for those of you who teach the little kids, especially once you get back in person, if I've got a mask on my face, how can they see and hear what I'm saying? How are you going to know that I just said cat? You heard it, but you didn't get to see that cat. And we do this with little kids, right? We go cat, cat. We say it a bunch to them. So that might be a place where you might also consider recording yourself saying it and inserting, because remember, we can insert some videos as well. So if you recorded yourself in Google Meet without the kids there, you could record a quick little clip of you saying something and insert that video so they can see your mouth. And Y'all, pardon me, I'm going to give you a little bit of an extreme close-up. If I was doing that with my kids, I would lean in so that my mouth is pretty, not right there, but pretty close to the camera, and say, cat, at, cat, because that's the kind of thing you do with your kids. So these are just some options. Like I said, they're not the only ones. I have even worked with schools that they have very strict curriculum. The teachers can't really deviate from it, but they were able to use slides with their K through 2s to build what they needed in a way that the kids could still interact and still cover what they needed. So here's the one thing, and I'm going to be the bearer of bad news on this one, so I'm sorry. There is not really a way to lock things here. I keep telling teachers, take some time, give kids some things that they can practice with, because they're going to drag things around. They're going to make a mess. And please teach all kids of any age what the undo button does. That's my favorite button in the world, and I'm a grown adult. Teach them that if you move something or you touch something, it does something you didn't want it to, stop right there, click undo. Because even a little kid can go, okay, I can fix my mistake. Teach them that that's like the eraser. It fixes it. So there aren't really a lock per se. So I always want teachers to know that. So just be aware of those things. Now I'll pull our cute little kitty cat out of here. Again, things where sometimes I ask kids to work together and they each have to pick their topic. And then I give them something where I say, look, if they're a little bit older, I can say, go create a slide in this doc and introduce your person to the rest of the class. And in this one, I'm asking them to create one slide that's part of the presentation. So each kid gets their own slide, and I give them an assignment. Here's what I teach kids to do, and you will have to teach them this. Now, 3rd through 5th grade are not going to have problems once you go through this with them a little bit. Showing them that when I'm clicked on a slide, I can actually click on the plus sign up at the top and add a new slide. Here's the important step. In my class, this was known as claim your slide. I make kids put their name on it. Oops, if I can type my own name, I'll be golden today. They may not leave that there forever, but as kids are all busy adding slides and getting set up, what you don't want is somebody to grab somebody's slide and write over it, because then they get really upset, which I get. This is their work. So we've got to teach them how to do this collaboratively. Couple other things. I'm big on free. If you do a search of the web and your kids are a little bit older, now our kids don't want to see Facebook, but you can find templates still for Instagram and other things where maybe they're using a template. But if you look at this, if I asked a kid to do something like this, they have to actually understand that person and their role in history to be able to complete it. I can't tell you that he's preparing to sign a nuclear test ban treaty unless I know he did that. So they have to take the things they learn and apply them. You can do things like this. Ask each student, you give them a set of slides. I'm sorry if anybody doesn't like frogs. I'm not trying to creep you out, I promise. What I did was grab some pictures. Again, insert a picture. If the kids are a little older, I will stack them so they can't see them all. And instead of me giving them a worksheet, I will ask them to come and figure out the steps of the life cycle and put them either in order or put them in a circle. If they're a little bit older, they can even animate them. So each time they click, they appear, because kids love animations. God knows we did as we were growing up. If your kids are a little bit bigger, I wouldn't even give them pictures. I would say, go find these pictures and show me what the life cycle of a frog is. So again, we're asking them to build something and demonstrate it to them. Okay. Now, again, these are just a few ways that I'm showing you with slides. One other thing I want teachers to always remember, and you saw this one in Google Docs, one of my favorite features is under File, and it's called Version History. And remember, in Docs, you could see a version history where you could see every change ever made. You could see who made the changes. So if somebody's really upset because somebody messed up their work, you can see who did what. I've even seen adults get excited about this because they were like, Marcy, there's this one teacher who's always screwing up our group documents, and I'm going to figure out who it is now. I'm like, okay, go ahead. It would break it down step by step for every change that's ever made. In addition to, you can see for this one, when I click, this is where I was changing things. If different people do it, they get a different color. By the way, if you are worried about one of your preciouses maybe plagiarizing, if you see an entire paragraph of text jump into a document or a slide, look at that closely. There's a chance they copied it and pasted it from somewhere. You know, they didn't type a whole paragraph in a minute. Generally not, at least. So it's not always total proof, but it's something to look at for you as a teacher. So just some things to consider. We're not going to dig into these bottom ones. That was for a school that buys that extra tool that ties into Google. Let's see. I know there's a couple questions that aren't necessarily just slides, so I will come back to those. Any other specific slides questions? People are going, nope. I love that I can see your faces because I see nopes. So if you have others as we go, please don't hesitate. Put them in. There's a few I need to come back to, and I will. The other tool I want to talk to you about is Google Forms. And I didn't keep the one I want open. There it is. When we talk about Google Forms, remember we've played with these a little bit from the front end, but what I always want teachers to see is some of the options. There are a lot of options that you can use with Google Forms. So when I'm in a form, and in this particular form right now, I'm in as somebody who would complete the form. You will see that there are options for drop downs. You can do things like a date. There's the ability to do time. Those may not be as important. You can do things on a scale of 1 to 10. How are you feeling today? And you get to set how many are in the scale. You get to set the two sides. One of the ones I like to do with scales is if I'm giving kids something, I might ask a question about how confident do you feel about your answers, 1 to 5. I'm not grading that. They know that. I tell them that. Something like this, I'm not grading. Tell me how you were feeling so that I know if I need to check on you. You have questions like this that are multiple choice, or sometimes with some of our kids, I call those multiple guess. But I want you to notice when we look at this multiple choice question, we see circles. If you scroll down to the bottom, you notice how this one has squares? Squares mean that kids can answer more than one. I can pick everybody who was an American president here. So I always want teachers to be aware of those visual cues because show those to your kids. The other thing I like to show teachers is this one. You notice that the your answer section takes up the whole line. But on this one, your answer is short. This one is set up as a short answer, while this one is set up as a paragraph. You always have different options in these. And let me see, I lost my back-end access to that one, which happens sometimes.
Can you
So
add
better yet,
audio
we'll just go out.
on the
Let me just
assessment?
grab a form really quickly, and I'll show you a new one. Again, yes, I will absolutely send you the link to this. They will put it in Sketch for you guys. So I have some amazing ladies who in my office who do all those great things for me, so I get to focus on the teaching. I'm so the teaching side of life. Couple reminders, give it a name. I'm going to get to that when you asked a good question that just popped in. That's not a good name. We will just call this form name. I'm going to be super creative right now. It happens, y'all. It happens. Don't forget to click in that top section because even if you type it here, you have to click so that it has a name. This name up top is what shows up in your Google Drive. So if you don't click on it, you're going to have a whole lot of untitled forms, untitled docs, untitled slides. Some of you are going, yep, I have some of those already, Marcy. I'm going to show you that too, Ruby. I love that you guys, like, your brains are already going where I'm headed. That's awesome. So form description, it's up to you. As a teacher, sometimes I use that to give more directions or give some general directions to the kids. You know, if I wanted to have something where they didn't need me to say it out loud. If you're giving a form and you are in virtual learning or even hybrid where some kids are working from home and some are at school, a description would be a great place to add instructions. Under untitled question, it automatically puts in one question called untitled. So I'm going to click on that, and I want to show you that right here it has a drop down, and it shows, sorry guys, I have to watch the weather right now with that lovely hurricane going on. What happens here is these are the different choices. And sorry, you probably see that pop up about the weather. You probably see the different choices here of the way we can add things. Now, you can pick it, you can change it. I will also tell you that Google uses something called artificial intelligence or something called machine learning sometimes. And what it does, if I say, whoops, what day of the week is it? Now, look, my no hands. I didn't put that little spot where it says suggestions. Google tried to figure out what it thought I might be asking. And so I can click on add all and I can see those options. Now, if I wanted to ignore those, I could have typed my own answers, but it's an option. So let's talk about those questions you guys started to send, which are good questions. What about things like pictures, audio? Let's start off with video. So this little sidebar will travel with you as you scroll down through a form and add on, it comes with you. The second to last one from the bottom probably looks a little familiar. That's an icon for YouTube, the little play in the TV. So if I click on that, and y'all, I know this, he is a grown man now, so he would probably hate me saying I love this kid because he's not a kid anymore. But if you've never seen Kid President, he always makes me smile. He has some great pep talks and things for teachers and students. Let's take his guide to being awesome. I could use some awesome on a Wednesday, right? Now, here's the way video works for them. It's got to come from YouTube, and you can either search, or I could have gone and gotten a link of something I knew I wanted from YouTube and just paste it in. And I could put in here for the title something like watch this video to the kids. Now, what you don't see is that this is attached to a question. Now, I like mine in the center. It's just a weird little quirk I have there. You can then come in and add a question. So I could add multiple choice. I could add something like, we'll go with a paragraph. How did this video make you feel? You can add multiple questions underneath that video so that your students can come in and answer multiple questions. So you're able to drop in a video and questions. Now, let's talk about those pictures, because that was the other question. So a couple things that I want you to understand, because there's different ways to handle pictures, and it depends on what you want to do with the picture. So right above that video icon, you'll see the one with the little mountains, and that's your add image icon. When I click that icon from the side, what it does is it lets me pick. We'll do a Google image search. And just so you know, this is my favorite animal in the whole world. And I always can safely pick this animal and not get weird pictures. You know, important things for teachers, right? So I could say something like, what is this animal? Here's what I need you to know. I used picture from the side just now. Just like when I use video from the side, you will notice there is no question built in. It's just, hey, here's a picture. I could come to the plus sign and I could add questions below. So if I add, what is this animal here? The kids don't have a question till I add it. So I tend to do stuff like this. Use this picture to answer the questions below. Okay. And then I can add my questions. What animal is in the picture? And sometimes you just need to go simple in life. And usually when I'm training, it's that. Okay. And I could add more than one. However, yes, we can actually insert pictures as the question itself. So I'm going to add a new question. We'll stick with multiple choice for now. Here's the important part. I'm going to kind of pull my hands away and show you I'm moving my mouse to the side. When I bring my mouse in over the question, this little icon pops up on the side of the question. So if I want to add it as a question, I would click there and I can say Google image search, I'm going to go for little kids. What letter does this animal start with? Oh, wait, sorry. I'm doing the question instead of the picture, y'all. It happens. We're going to go with the cute little friendly dog. I don't think he's too threatening to anybody who might be afraid of dogs, hopefully. So here's my little dog, and I can say, what letter does this animal start with? Now, I'm going to kind of double dip on your questions. Somebody asked about adding audio. So technically, there's no button for audio, but I'm going to show you how to get around that. So if I come back to my Google Drive, here was my Vocaroo. Remember I showed you that in the 3 dots, we can get a share link. I'm just going to come, I've already made it so they can view it. We did that earlier. I'm going to copy this link. So here's the cheat. I can actually paste that link into the question. Now I'm going to go through a few answers and then I'm going to, well, actually I'll go ahead. So I love this button. When you are building a form for your students, the little eyeball means that I can actually click and I can see this, that the way the kids or the person who's taking the form would see it. So my puppy is down here and look what happened. I now have a link. So the kids now, it's going to click, when they click a link, it opens up. Oh, don't mess with me today. There we go. It opens up a separate tab. So you're going to have to just show them that, look, here's what you were working on. Here's your thing. Play it and listen to it. Again, you won't hear it right now. And then click back and then they can come and do the answer. Now, if I wanted to, I could read the question and I could put links as well for answers. Now, I know we're talking a lot about the little kids, but some of you may have students that have an accommodation of having things read aloud to them. That has been very problematic for schools through the spring. And I'm not saying it's the only way, but it might be a first way that I could give them to do an assessment and then look at how they did and then maybe meet with them and go over the ones they struggled with. So I could continue to post those images, or excuse me, those answers. Now I'm going to close this real quick. The other thing I want you to see, while I can put in an image as a question, I also can put in an image as an answer. Now, I could put it in a question where I have the question and the answers as images, or just to make it easy, I'll grab a question. When you hover again over those answers, to the side is where you will see add image. So I could do something like this. Come on, Google. There we go. Google was having a brain break there. So I could do something like red, and it'll take just a minute. And I'll add another one, and I'll add green. So primary colors is something you spend a lot of time on with your babies. I call them babies because they're so cute and little. So you could say something like this. Which color is red? I could add a link to an audio that I made about that. I didn't right now, but we could. And then they could look at these. Now, I can either choose to put some text. I could put a link to some audio if I wanted, or I could just leave it saying option 1 and 2. Okay. You also, if you wanted to clean that up, could just say 1, 2. Ooh, y'all, I got excited there. Sorry. Let me go get it back. Undo is not here, by the way, unfortunately. This is one of those places that doesn't have undo, which it should. Green. Here's green. Let me put my green back. There we go. And again, you can put multiple answers, but for speed, that's kind of what I'm doing. So are you able to make the link, the audio, mic, and pictures? Ruby, do you mean, I'm not clear on what you're needing me to answer.
You know
The way
how
you would
in the
audio in here would always be that you recorded it through Vocaroo and put it in your Google Drive and set up the share. And I may not have answered just now what you're asking. So if I didn't, ask me, clarify for me so I can make sure I'm answering the right question for you, because that's important to me.
In the form in this question,
So
you
I'll
put
give
the
you a
link.
minute. And I'm also just kind of checking on things like that.
Can you hear me?
Please, like I said, if I didn't quite hit your question, send me back a message in chat. Here's the other two important places I want teachers to know about in Google Forms. In the 3 dots, you have a section, I call it a set it and forget it, called preferences. This is something you set once. You can still adjust these. But I tell teachers, take the time, if you're going to use Google Forms, to go in and set these up the way you usually use forms with kids or whoever your clients, adults, or if you're, administration, how are you going to generally set it up with adults? Okay. So where it says something like collect email addresses, as a teacher, I usually do collect their email addresses because then I don't have to ask them their name as part of the test. And then I don't get papers that I don't know who it belongs to. Yay. Make questions required. Make questions required means they can't skip it. Okay. Generally, most questions, I don't want kids to skip them. And that means they can't even turn it in until they answer all the questions that I said are required. And if you're going to use Google as a quiz to do a little bit of grading, it can't grade everything, but it can grade some stuff. Generally, how many points is each question? So for example, most of the time my questions are 1 point, then I'd leave 1. If I say that most of the time my questions are 3 points, I can set it like that. Here's what you need to know though. All of those preferences can be adjusted when I go through my settings. And this little button is super important, okay? So I'm going to click on it, and there are 3 different spots. There's general. Notice it says collect email addresses because I told it set that as a preference. However, if I don't want their email addresses because I'm doing an anonymous form, maybe I'm asking kids what they think about something and I know they might not feel comfortable saying it with their name attached. All I'd have to do is click that box to turn it off. Okay. Most schools use this one a lot. Restrict to users in your school. Because what that means is if I send out a form through Classroom, they have to be logged in, or even if I send it out through email, they have to be logged in with their school account. That means their parents aren't completing it with their personal accounts, or they're not completing it with a personal account. If it's a test, I often limit it and let them answer the test just once. I don't want multiple tests from the same kid usually. If it's a test, I usually don't let them edit after they submit it. And then this one I often have off for tests too, where they can see kind of what are the pictures of how everybody answered as a graph. I don't usually want them to see that right away. If I do, I'll show them later. Okay. In Google Forms, can you change the audio link to be a picture of a sound mic? No, you can't do that. I'm sorry. I found a workaround by dropping in the link, but I haven't found a way to put the picture there and still link it to a piece of audio. So it would be one of those things. But I'm going to say this, and I say this with lots of years experience supporting teachers who teach those tiny kids. So I taught all over the place, but middle school was my favorite because, I could give them that ugly look and they wouldn't cry. They got that Miss Abear was serious. With little kids, you guys teach routines. This is going to be no different in that you're going to need to teach them the routines. When you go in a form, if it looks like this is what you do. You also, sorry guys, you're going to probably have to teach some of those routines to parents too. You might have like a little cheat sheet for parents that you put together, or a little video showing them just some things they might need to help their child with. Because what I'm finding in my former school, I still take care of them outside of my work time. And I got a phone call the other day because one of the teachers was freaking out, and the parents were freaking out. Well, I had told them you got to teach the parents, and they hadn't done it yet. So don't forget to include parents kind of in the education step, because this is new to a lot of them as well. So in the middle is presentation. The most important one for most of you here will be this confirmation message, because you can either leave it to say your response has been recorded, or you can type a message to the kids that they'll see when they finish it. If you use Google Forms when kids are in front of you, I don't know about you, but you'd write like on the board, or you'd put it up on your display what the kids were supposed to do after a quiz or a test. And God love them, there was always that one that was like, Miss Bear, what am I supposed to do? While everybody else is still taking their test. So I put it here as well. I would type out what I expected them to do so that it was in multiple places. Now, here's where we get to talk about how our kids have outsmarted teachers in some parts of the country. This last tab, quizzes. I'm going to give you some key advice that has come to light. If you want Google to do some of the grading, normally the teachers would make it a quiz and set everything up before they give it to the kids. Don't do that. Here's why. I'm going to show you what the kids have figured out. They'll teachers turn on, make this a quiz. You decide how they get access to the grades. Now, save here will save my settings for all three of these tabs. So I'm going to save it. We're going to pick this one, because once I make it a quiz, I now have the option at the bottom for an answer key. In answer key, I get to pick the right day. So today is Wednesday, I think. I'm going to click done. Now, I would go through, and anything that Google will let me set an answer for, I would. But I want you to see how the kids have figured out this is kind of cheating, aka hacking, which I kind of admire, but not totally. If they are taking the test as a form and they right-click on the form, the little rascals have figured out this view page source. And when they click view page source, they are sharing through the Gram, Vine, Reddit, and everywhere else that if they scroll way to the bottom, all of this stuff is code, by the way. So most of us read this and our brains go, ah. But the kids have figured out that if I scroll up just a little bit, look at what you see here. The question, what letter does the animal start with? Which color is red? They come through and they find the question. I had to find the what day of the week, because I can't find it fast. But they have figured out basically how to go through this and figure out which ones are answers for yes or no, for like what's right. So if you can give it an answer in Google Forms to grade for you, our little rascals have figured out how to grade it or how to check what's right. Now, part of me kind of admires them, because they might have a job one day as a coder or somebody who's the one that's helping make sure sites are secure. However, the flip side of it is that some of those little rascals are not figuring that stuff out. But here's the hack the teachers have figured out, because, we just have to try to stay ahead of them as best we can. What the teachers are doing is in their settings, they are turning that off. Don't even make it a quiz and set the answers first. Set up everything you need that's here and here. Set up all your questions. Give it out to the kids. And again, this can be pushed through Google Classroom. So in Google Classroom, just so you can see, I'm just going to grab whatever classroom pops up first. I know I can play in this one. Classwork, create. Here's a Marcy tip. Right here, I would say create assignment. Don't say create quiz assignment. If you say create quiz assignment, what it does is it sets it up automatically as a quiz and creates a brand new one that you actually have to go build the form. build your form first, say assignment. Just like before, I would say add Google Drive, and it should pop up because it's recent. There it is. And I'm going to be super rude here, y'all, so pardon me on that one. Take your quiz, and we'll pretend I've set all my other assignments. The kids are going to go in. Once they've all taken their quiz as the teacher, I'll go back to that form through Google Drive. I will come back to my settings gear, back to quizzes, and then I'm going to turn on make it a quiz, set my decisions, and say save. Then I'm going to come in and set up an answer key, because they can't pull the answers out if you don't set the answers before they get it. Don't you love how teachers are figuring out how to outsmart our kids? Welcome to the world of online instruction, right? I saw a question somewhere in here about Classroom. Okay, so how to add a Google Meet link in the Stream profile. So let's kind of hit that one back. So under Stream, now here you'll see mine is already set up. So if you pardon me, what I'll do is take you through the steps, and that way you'll have them recorded. In the plus sign, I'm creating a new class. I'm just going to call this Roots, and that way we can play in it. You don't have to create a new class to do this, but I want you to see it from a fresh class. And hopefully Google is going to quickly create that folder. The first time you go in where it says Meet Link, it's going to say Generate Meet Link. You're going to click on that, and then Google makes us double click here. In the little box that pops up, you have to click again, even though you just told it, Generate Meet Link. One more time. Yes, I really meant it. So it says here, visible to students. For the moment, I'm going to turn that off, and I'll show you how to turn it back on, and I'll save it. So what I have here is a link, and I see as a teacher the little eyeball with the line through it. What that means is the kids can't see it right now. When I'm ready for the kids to see it, I go in the gear for that class. If you scroll to the bottom of General, here you'll see the settings for Meet. Here's where I can make it visible to students, and I can turn that on and off. What some teachers are choosing to do is right before a meeting, they turn the link on and it pops up for the kids. When they're finished, best practice is to tell all the kids to leave the meeting, then you end it, and then the teachers sometimes choose to make that invisible. Now, if it's little kids, it might not be as big a deal. I loved my middle schoolers, but I know my middle schoolers. I could see one of my third period kids sending the link to a fourth period kid thinking they're helping them and not realizing those are two different links. Please note that you always have the ability, if something's going on or you think somebody shared it or it's getting muddled, under this little drop down arrow in the settings, you can actually reset it and it will give you a brand new link code. Okay. And I just want teachers to be aware of that. If you're teaching littles, you can probably leave this visible. And notice I get a different icon when it's visible. I get the little camera inside the little icon. So just with a quick look, you as a teacher can tell that it's on for them. Okay. Let's see. I see a hand up. Let's see if I can find you, Miss Ruby. I can't unmute you, but you should be able to unmute yourself, hopefully. And if not, you can put it in chat.
So we don't have
Hey, Miss
that
Ruby.
option. Hi, hello. We don't have that option when we go under our Google Classroom.
Okay.
It's not a link in there. And then when you go under the settings, you know how under the general, it shows that you have the option to, it doesn't even have the Meet.
You don't have your Meet.
So after Stream, it goes straight to grading.
Okay, so what we need to do is just look at, it's probably something in your admin console. And so if they don't find it, they know how to find me. My friend knows how to find me if he needs help finding it.
I asked him this question yesterday.
Okay.
And he didn't know how to do it. So he told me to ask you again.
Okay. You won't be able to do this. So do me a favor. I don't know if he's still in here and if he can hear me. And if he can't, just do me a favor. Tell him email me, and I'll touch base with him, because it's not something you guys can do. It's actually in the admin console. So I don't want to add on steps that you can't even do, because I know the teachers' brains are already like full.
Okay.
But I'll work with him on that. And where's my pen? I lost my ink pen. You know those days, y'all, where everything is not where it was? I'm the same as every other teacher. I lose my ink pen constantly. I'm going to make a note to reach out to him too. But if he hasn't heard from me, I'm going to just put no Google Meet in classroom. Something's probably just not on, so he and I will make sure we find that. And once we turn that on for you guys, you'll see that as an option. So you'll know when it's on, because it'll be in that stream banner for you. So I'm sorry, I probably gave you a description you didn't need. It was just because you couldn't get to it. Sorry about that, y'all. Okay, let's see. I'm just making sure I got everybody's questions. I don't want to miss anybody. There was something earlier too I thought about classroom. That one, we talked about you can't actually record and edit there, but that you could, record through Google Meet like we're doing. Okay. In the meantime, please, if you have a few other questions, throw those in. And in the meantime, what I'm going to do is drop in for you. I'm sure you're remembering this from Al. So one of you has one. Okay, that's interesting. Now, is that in your school account that you have one? And I'm trying to match I don't see a face for that one. So that's interesting. So I don't know if it's something going on with different accounts. You will have to make sure to, sometimes you have to make sure, because sometimes you'll switch back and forth between personal accounts and school accounts. And you actually can have Classroom in a personal account. Just please don't use that with kids. Google puts a legal warning the first time you would put a Classroom in your personal account, that's not for use with kids. And I want you all to be safe. I don't ever want a teacher to get, caught up in something. I'm going to drop in the real quick reflection form.
Wait. Excuse me. Can you explain that again? You said, all right, when I went into Google Classroom, all it asked me was to sign in.
Okay.
It did make a distinction between a classroom account and a personal account.
Okay.
Now I got a hit today on my NetFirms or our NetFirms account that said that someone had been trying to invade or whatever my Google account.
Oh.
Which was me. No, I'm saying it was me
okay,
though,
it was
because
you.
when I went in a second time yesterday to go back in, it kicked me out. It didn't let me go in. Then I went back in and it let me in. So I'm saying, how do we make a distinction between, how do we know whether we're in a person? Because you said about some legal liability that.
Yeah, I don't want you to get caught.
No, it's not. And I hear that, but I don't understand how or what. What are the legalities? You're not to have a personal Google account. You're not supposed to have a Google Classroom account in your personal Google account.
You're right, with students in it. Like if you wanted to set up one for yourself and some of the teachers.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I hear you. So
let me show you.
I'm only dealing with a classroom with students.
Good deal.
So how do I know if it's in a personal account?
Let me show you. There's two ways that'll often happen. So if you'll notice one of them, and I'm kind of trying to move my mouse so you can see it. I zoomed in a little bit. You'll see the little picture with my face in the corner.
Yes.
And then right above that, you see one with the little ninja icon. Yes. Okay. So here's what happens to people a lot. So the one with my face right here shows that I'm logged directly into Google itself. So if I click on that, you can see I'm in my marcy@eduscapepd.com, which is that's basically our school account. Okay. What's happening to some people is they're logging in, and because you have an account, like for your personal, you have an account for your school. Some of you are like me that might have a lot of Google accounts. What the best advice is, if you set up yourself, and if you're using Chrome, which is always going to be the best, right up in the top, this is actually showing me, my little ninja icon shows you that I'm logged into Chrome, not just Google, meaning that I've logged into the browser so that I can keep my stuff together with the browser. So when I click on this, what you will see is I have a lot of different accounts I use. Okay. So what I recommend to you is first use Google Chrome, because it's going to make it first. It's built to play with Google because it's built by Google. Okay. What you are able to do is, if you don't see, and you might not see a ninja, there's different icons, but you should be able to click there and have the option to come in, and it should let you what they call add an account. And it will then ask you, hey, what's your login? Now, you can already be logged into Google, but not be logged into Chrome. And what I've seen happening to teachers repeatedly that I work with all over the place is they think they're logged in because it'll show it here, but it's kind of bouncing between accounts. And a lot of times what causes that, and I've been guilty of this, right now I'm logged into this account, and then if I try to open this and log into another account all in the same window, it starts to kind of cross those accounts. So it doesn't always correctly keep you attached to the right account. So what you'll want to do is look at logging into Chrome. Second way you can check this, and I know sometimes you're jotting. Remember, this is also recorded too. In this little 3 dots in the Chrome browser, remember 3 dots is important usually, under settings. The first setting will show you things like you in Google, and you can start to look at if you're synchronizing and different accounts that you're starting to be logged into. Like I said, I couldn't tell you technically why it does it. I just know I've seen that happen to a lot of teachers. And sometimes you're in the correct account, like you're in your school account, and it'll flip you back to your personal account, and then it gives you an error saying you can't get to something or that it doesn't work right.
Okay, for me, I need a visual. The account that you're in right now, is that your personal or your business account?
Both of these are tied to my business account.
Okay,
But-
so can you show me what your personal one looks like so I know the difference between how they look?
So I'm going to actually cheat you. I use Chrome because watch, God knows what was up on this. So y'all pardon me. It was probably Facebook. Okay. I'm going to click. Oh, wait, let's see. Hang on. I need to share differently. Give me just a second.
Okay.
Let me rephrase.
There's a difference in how they look, right?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let me, this is what I need to do. Give me a minute because you're going to lose my screen share for just a second. So bear with me on that one for a minute. Because I have so many different windows open, sometimes it freaks things out. Let's see. Let me come back to screen share. And let me show you a window. And trust me, I understand about needing visuals.
Right. Because then
Okay.
I can look at my account and know whether or not I'm in the school account or
Yeah. So it's going to come
and
slowly.
I can know if I have a school account.
Yeah, that's a good thing to know. So couple things. So here it is. Here's my, don't look at how many is in that inbox. It's just an overrun jungle at this point. This is my personal account now. As soon as I get that out of the way, notice that where I had the ninja earlier, I have a musical note. Because when you set it up to sign into Chrome, you can pick your little picture. So like I have a different little picture for each account. And you
Okay,
can
so
kind
the
of
main-
see that.
So the main distinction is going to be whatever icon or avatar we choose.
What you set up when you go through that process. Absolutely. And you'll notice I also purposely, like you said about needing visual cues, this is why I said, trust me, I get it. You'll notice I use a different picture on my personal, but you can see here it says Gmail. But what I've seen happen to teachers is they're logged in here. So they're looking at that little icon and they're like, but Marcy, I'm logged in my school account, but it kind of bounces them between accounts. So the best way to get around that is by logging into your Gmail account. Your school account through Chrome.
Google.
Yeah,
Okay.
I got to fix my words there. Through your
No.
school Google account through Chrome. And so that,
Icon. How did you sign in your school email?
so 2 ways. I'm going to switch windows again for you guys real quick. Y'all pardon me with the bouncing of screens because it's probably a little frustrating to you guys to see it. Here's what I'm going to do too. I'm going to open up just kind of a window that doesn't connect to my other accounts so you can kind of see here. Let's see, window, this one, and share. All right. So once it shares, Google's slow this morning. So what you'll see here is kind of little, I call him the mystery man, and you see how it says you've gone incognito on my screen. Hopefully that's what's showing. Yes. Okay. I'm always a little afraid it doesn't grab the right one. Incognito just means it's not going to tie into the accounts I log into, because I want to kind of show you what it looks like when it's not grabbing one. So there's two places you would sign in. One of those is going to be sign in. This sign in button, and even if I clicked like Gmail, or if I clicked from the waffle to drive through here, it's going to yell at me to sign in. Okay. That sign in this main window is going to be signing directly into Google. Okay. So if I sign in here, and let's see if I can remember a password, y'all. Now y'all get to watch Marcy under pressure. Let's see. Yes. Okay. So now you see how it's got that same picture from before, from my education account, from my work account. And I can click on it and I can see I'm logged in. Now, where it says incognito is where I would go. Now, right now, I can't log into my, into any account. Incognito windows are probably off for you. A lot of schools turn them off because what it doesn't do is hold on to the data, meaning it won't remember your history, but it's a chance for me to show you without tangling up all the accounts. So for you, let me again switch windows. And I wish there was a better way for me to be able to just do this, but I have tons of windows today. Let's go back to that one. Sorry, I have 6 different windows to choose from every time. Okay, so when I come back to this one, here you'll see I'm logged straight into my Google account, and up top is where I can see that I'm actually logged into my work account. And again, you can come in and do from this little ninja guy. You won't have ninja guy, but you can come in and click add. And what you'll get is the chance. This is where some of the little icons are. And then it would actually, I'll just do this. I won't keep this one. But what it would then do is make me sign in so that that sign in becomes part of that top bar where my ninja guy is.
Google is not recognizing my school email address.
Okay.
When I try to sign in, because I try to do the add account.
Okay. We're going to definitely want to check with John and it might even be something he and I are going to have to work on in the background for you. Please make sure he knows that so he and I can touch base and make sure we have you guys all untangled, for lack of a better word.
Will we be able to switch them if we did link our personal account?
Yes. And look, this is how easy it is. Once you set them up, now remember, I train in this account and I train lots of schools. When I click my ninja, every one of these is a different Google account. So like I can bounce between, I use my own son sometimes as like a demo account to show as a student. And I don't know if it's going to pull that one for you, but it just shows the Google screen and it changes those pictures. Do you see the purple H's? Oh, you're muted, I think. It's not getting sound.
The purple H's?
Instead of my picture and the little ninja, do you see the purple H's up in this top corner? No, it may not be sharing this.
No, I don't.
Okay. It's probably sticking to this screen because of the 20 different things I've got running to keep the meeting up. But what happens is when you click on this, if I click on a different one of these accounts, it opens up a brand new window. It doesn't get rid of all this other stuff. And what it does is keeps each account in a separate window so things don't get tangled. Because I've seen that happen to a lot of teachers, unfortunately, where like it tangles them up. So that's going to be your best bet. I'm making a couple of notes to touch base with John, so we can kind of see what's going on.
Excuse me, I had a question. Miss
Absolutely.
Everett. This goes back to
I'm looking at you, I promise.
Yeah, this goes back earlier to what you exposed us to with the World War II images.
Yes.
To your knowledge, are there any particular images that this software has declared too graphic and sensitive for the students that we're dealing with to peruse?
I would tell you that I would be very cautious of that one because of the topic. Like if I was sending them to World War II, I would be very specific. And let me see if I can pull it up.
Mhm.
Let's see. I kind of sent it to a broad one because I wanted you to kind of see just some of the options.
Right.
But I would be very careful and acknowledging the age of my kids. If you go to like Auschwitz, what I might choose to do is pick one
No,
exhibit.
I used World War II as an example because I know that there's an established sentiment
Oh,
to World
yes.
War II because of how it's interpreted in history books. But based on the concentration and focus of this school, we
Yes,
deal with the suffering of Africans on the continent and in the
absolutely.
Caribbean and in the United States.
Absolutely.
So there may be certain images that this software has based on public perception
Yeah.
they consider too sensitive and graphic. That's why I was asking.
I will show you one if you guys will pardon me that I would be careful that my kids weren't getting to. That one's clothing. Every now and then you will find things that you don't want kids to see. I tell kids this about kids, excuse me. I tell teachers this about any website that you are going to use with kids. I don't care which one it is. Any website you're going to use with kids, you want to look at it first and check the images because what you just said is so important. Every school has different, what I call tolerances, different permissions, different things that like some schools are like, I'm okay with the kids doing this. And others are like, no, or we're okay with them seeing this and we're not. My job is never going to be to tell you what works for you and your kids because as a teacher, I know that every one of you knows your kids, knows your school, knows the rules and kind of the way your school
No,
operates.
point of clarity. I wasn't dealing with the school. I was talking about the software itself. Is there a certain parameter that you're not supposed to exceed, or you'll get some type of warning or some type of alert? That's what I
So
was asking.
for every school, and pardon me because I'm not going to remember your specific, I don't have them ingrained in my brain. Here's an example of an engraving of Adam and Eve where they're covered with like fig leaves. So something like that, because it's part of a museum collection, they're not particularly like filtering it. But I know at my old school, filters would catch certain pictures even on websites. So it's good to know what your filter picks up and what it doesn't. The best way to do that, I would plan lessons at home and then I would have to go to school and check which websites would get through the filters and which images would get through the filters. Because almost every school I know has some filters because that's part of all of the federal requirements for keeping our kids safe online.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know right there.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, fine. All right, thanks.
And look, same thing with YouTube. Different schools have different settings. I mentioned YouTube, but if it's blocked for your kids, you're not going to be able to share it through Google Classroom.
Okay.
Okay. And some schools have like where some videos open and some are closed. So I always want to warn people of that part too. And first of all, I appreciate your patience. I know it was a little trickier to get into Google Meet today. And so I know I have taken more of your time than was allotted. I'm going to hang around a couple more minutes to answer questions. But I also want to be as respectful of your time as I can since I already imposed on it a little bit. And I hope that was worthwhile for you. Just a reminder, if you haven't, please feel free. I encourage you because my bosses like us to check in. So that reflection form will be there with for you. Tomorrow, sorry, I'm looking at my schedule. Tomorrow, same time, we'll be talking about number 4, pillar 4, which is accessibility, which will also continue to talk about how we can use these Google tools to teach with. And so again, it's all about the focus of how do we teach with these things. So again, I'm going to hang around a little bit longer, but if you don't have questions and if you need to get to the next thing, which I understand, it's okay if you drop out. I promise, no judgment there. And thank you for your time, everybody. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Marcy.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
I posed a question in the
Oh, did I miss
chat. But essentially, I was asking about
Oh.
when you brought up the digital integrity, and I wanted to know, like, how would you suggest we try to promote to our students, like, yes, we want you to attend, yes, we want you to participate to the best of your abilities, without making them feel like there's a hard set standard.
I think that's a good question. Now, I'll give you some things to think about. I'll also tell you it might be something that as a school community, there's a discussion around, because for parents, it'll be easier if it's a pretty similar, thing from grade to grade. And I'm sorry, I missed your question. I caught the other one and missed that one. I think part of it could be as simple as kind of reaching out to your parents. If you know them already, you may know some. It might be that you send a Google form. Okay. It may be something where you want to reach out directly to your parents so that, hang on, y'all. Okay, there we go. It may be something that you want to reach out to your parents through like a Google form as a survey and asking them if there are any issues. Is it a lot of schools get permission, first of all, for kids to be on camera, but it may be talking and dialoguing with your families about what will work for them. As a teacher, I would be very worried that I don't want to call out or embarrass a student. That's always my biggest thing, especially as we're starting a year, because they don't know us already. We don't know them necessarily. I think I'd try to have some kind of dialogue with your families, and whether that's a Google form that goes to parents where maybe it's asking, is it okay for your child to be on camera for live classes, or would you prefer the camera off? And kind of find out how that fits. I don't think there's one right answer. I know that some schools are requiring kids in some places. That makes me a little nervous, just because I know that there may be kids that could be something that would make them uncomfortable. And I'm trying to be, as we deal with all of this, cognizant of the fact that the last thing I want to do is make a child uncomfortable, embarrassed, or feel like their peers saw something they didn't want them to see, or they didn't want them to see their room or their house. I think it's not a one right answer. It's kind of one of those tread carefully things. And I know I didn't give you an exact, hey, this is the answer, because I don't think every school has there's one pat answer. I think it's different answers for different people. And you're welcome, please, if you want to dialogue a little more about that, you're welcome to unmute.
No, I really just appreciate your insight. It's been something that I've been trying to kind of wrap my head around moving forward. And I think the whole school, we've kind of been trying to wrap our heads around how we're going to discuss that with the parents without coming off as offensive or as making a rule out of something that might make the kids uncomfortable or feel like, they can embarrass themselves.
And I tell teachers too, every school community is different. There are some school communities where them saying you have to be on camera could work for their school community, and I don't want to ask it. And I think it'll be maybe just approaching parents and give them that light. Look, we are trying to make a safe space for your kids to learn, even when that's digital. And so because of that, we'd like you to answer these questions so we can best help your family through this digital learning time. Because I think families appreciate that. One of the things I've been working with a lot of schools on is parents are nervous. This is scary. Whether they're remote, they're nervous. Whether they're in person or partially in person, they're nervous. And so whatever information you can give them, whatever you can do to support them and take care of them through that, hopefully they're going to appreciate. I know I do as a parent.
Well, no, thank you so much, Marcy. You definitely answered my question, and we're going to probably, as a school community, have some discussions about that moving forward.
Good. Like I said, I want things like that to be within a community, because your community. I can help you with the teaching and stuff, but I don't want to tell your community this is the way you have to do it, because different communities, different needs. Okay. Just making sure there aren't any other last questions because I don't want to leave you. Okay. And I also will work on getting some information to you guys about, I'm going to see if I can find like an article about logging into Chrome that'll help you. Sometimes I can find some things that Google puts out with like, how to do it, where it's steps. Because I know it's hard when we're showing all of this and lots of information.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak because I used Google Classroom last year, and I noticed that the accounts would kind of intertwine when I was using something from my drive.
Okay.
So when I noticed that, I stopped doing that immediately.
Okay.
And so I did what you said. I just planned ahead, and I would just get images or whatever I was using. I would just get that from Google itself.
Right.
Whether or not if I was inserting a document, pictures or whatever. But as soon as I would use my drive, they would just intertwine. Those accounts were intertwined.
So it was bouncing back between your personal and your school.
Yes.
I'm going to work on pulling, like I said, I'm going to see if I can find like a Google support form because sometimes they have good things that are like, these are the steps to do. And I'm going to try and pull that. I'm with you guys tomorrow. So I'm going to try and make sure I have that where I can drop it to you guys tomorrow. And that way I can kind of help y'all with that whole, because I've seen that before for teachers. Y'all aren't the first ones to experience that.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. So hopefully that'll help y'all get that kind of, sorted. Because you're right. You don't want things like that tangled up.
Yeah. You're the restaurant.
Okay. Hey, Marcy.
Yes. Hey.
When did you want to get together and talk about these things? I've been in and out here, but
that's okay.
When do you have time?
I'm looking at my schedule. That's why you see me looking up. I promise I'm not ignoring y'all. Let's say about, let me see where there's a hole, because my schedule's stupid. Don't laugh. And pardon me, y'all, you're getting the arm reach over you to my whiteboard with my schedule. Is it possible to do 4 your time? Because that's, believe it or not, the first break I have between a parent webinar I'm doing tonight.
4 is great. You want to just give me a call? You still have my number, right?
I still have your number. I will give you a call. Look, and I'm putting up here. Call John. There we go. That's easy. I'll give you a call and we'll figure that out. You are always welcome.
Okay. All right now.
At least I don't have to evacuate to your house, right? With all these storms.
Yeah, that's right. Is that supposed to hit today or tomorrow?
Well, we had Marco. We got lucky. He sent his rain to Florida and he came across. We got a little wind and rain, but nothing bad. If you pray. If you send good thoughts, whatever it is you do, send them to Louisiana and Texas because they're about to get pounded tonight. A Cat 4 is what they're expecting.
What? It's going to a Category 4?
Yes, sir. Laura's already a 3. That was one of the alerts I got while we were in, and they're expecting a 4 before landfall. It will be a hurricane all the way up the Louisiana line to the top, like all the way through Louisiana. They expect it to be a full-on hurricane. So even North Louisiana. Wow. So,
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's always one of those, you have mixed feelings. You're glad it's not you, but you're sorry it's someone else.
As you know, I have family in Thibodeau, Jeanerette,